Welcome back to the channel. Now, not so long ago, I actually reviewed the AMPAPA D1 Amplifier. Now, it had the TPA 3255 chips. It had an open top, glass top that you could access the op amps. You could change the color displays inside, and it had a cracking little LED on the front for various displays. Now, I really did like it. Well, other than the remote control, which was pretty damn poor in my opinion. But I did say that with the addition of a DAC, the AMPAPA D1 improved drastically. And Ampapa have created their own. This is the Q1. It's a combination DAC and headphone amplifier. And it's not just got one, it has two separate integrated DACs. So let's go and take a look. Now, the packaging experience with the Q1 is very good. You will find a very descriptive manual, and I implore you to spend your time looking at it, reading it, because it does explain an awful lot of how the Q1 works. You also get a cleaning cloth because this thing is a finger magnet, especially on the glass on the top and the front. And then you get the unit itself. And that is a well-constructed aluminium framed unit with the display on the front and control knob, or 3.5mm headphone socket. On the side you've got ventilation courtesy of the Ampapa branding, and on the rear you have your inputs and outputs. The top can be accessed to change your op amps. Now, in a separate package, you get a USB-C to USB-A connector cable for your computer. You get an optical fiber cable, a 3.5mm audio cable, your remote control, your 12-volt DC power adapter, and a Bluetooth antenna. Now, the remote control for the Q1, it's basically the same as that of the D1. However, they seem to have rejigged it, thought about it, and it is far more intuitive to use. You can use it to control all the features that are on the Q1. Now, one thing I would say, however, is that you're likely to be using the Q1 with the D1. And in that instance, you're going to still need to use the D1 remote for changes to bass and treble, etc. Now, it would have been really lovely if Ampapa had thought about this and created maybe a slightly more universal remote where there was options to switch between the Q1 and the D1 on the one remote control. You have your input where you can select from coaxial, an optical, a USB-C, or Bluetooth. You've got your chip selection. Now you've got your headphone chip where you can select either DAC for that, or you select the line chip where you have a choice of either DAC for your outputs on the rear. Settings, you have quite a lot of them. Firstly, let's start and look at filter. Each DAC has its own set of filters. The AKM filter has 6, whereas the ESS DAC has 8 different filters. You can select your output from your headphone and line, headphone priority, or headphone with a gain. You can change your LED colors, which will rotate, and you can modify these still further. Your light will allow you to dim or brighten the display, or you can have it off, and your VU mode gives you a choice of up to 10 different displays for the front of the unit. Now, taking a look at the two DAC chips that are both in the Q1. First of all, I'm looking at the Sabre Order Files website, and the ES9039 DAC chip is one of their newer 32-bit DAC chips, which supports 768 kilohertz input. And I say the same, the AK4494 DAC, which again is a 32-bit stereo premium DAC chip. So both of these appear on paperwork to provide a good high-end audio performance, and I can't say anything that they don't. The only thing I would say is that possibly listening to the music, there's no huge difference to my ears in between the chips. Now, the connectivity on the back of the Q1 is fairly simple. You've got a pair of, or should I say, you've got two pairs of TRS outputs, and the same with the RCA. Now, the reason for this is that you can have each DAC on an individual one, or you can have each DAC going to both pairs. With regards to inputs, you're fairly limited to your optical in, your USB-C in, which is for your computer. You've got a coaxial in, and you've actually got a 12-volt trigger switch, which allows you to plug this to something like the D1, and the remote control will turn both units on and off. You've got your 12-volt power supply input there, and obviously this is for your Bluetooth. Now, to access the Q1, it is simply a case of removing the glass lid, where you actually have access to not one but 4 op amps, and I'm assuming that there's 2 op amps for each DAC. Now, you've got here the AKM DAC, and you've got your ESS DAC here. One thing I would caution against, however, is if you're going to change the op amps, it's certainly going to work out quite expensive. Now, the Q1 has plenty of connectivity if you're going to be using it solely as a headphone amplifier. It's neat, it's tidy, it's small enough to sit on your desktop, and with the LED VU meters, it certainly looks interesting too. However, my personal opinion is that you probably already bought an amplifier, and if you've already bought the AMPAPA D1 amplifier, you're probably going to want to add to this the Q1 DAC. Now, I say this because they look great together. You can even get an Ampapa stand so you can tie them into a mini little stack system. You'll certainly discover the benefits of having a DAC when you're streaming music to a normal amplifier, and for the fact that Q1 has 2 DACs, various different filters. For both of these DACs, you can play around to achieve the sound you actually like yourself. Now, one thing I would say about the Q1 is if you're not using it as a desktop, maybe they've missed the opportunity to add a couple extra inputs. Maybe a HDMI ARC would have been good to make it connectable to your television. And also, personally, I would have loved to see a pair of RCA inputs. In fact, it's a bit odd why they're not there. Simply for the fact that if you were using it as part of a bigger system, then you've got the option to connect, I don't know, a CD player or the phono input for your turntable. But however you do look at it, the Q1 is certainly an interesting DAC. A lot of them are just tiny little black boxes. So personally, go take a look. Now, I've put the link to the Ampapa website and the Q1 in the description below. You can also obviously take a look at the review I carried out for the D1. That's also in the description below. So many thanks for spending your 8 minutes watching this video. I hope there's a little bit of interest for you there. Please remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll also be kept up to date of any future reviews.